The moment Elena stepped into the grand foyer, the metallic scent hit her like a punch. The perfume of cut roses and polished marble faded beneath the underlying note of copper. She froze, hand tightening around the mop handle she carried for her daily chores. Each rasp of her breath echoed in the cavernous entrance hall she once flaunted in stilettos for galas and dinners, until she became his maid. Her eyes found the stain first. A dark, crimson smear across the polished marble, winding like an ominous river toward the lower hall. She swallowed. Her pulse felt like hammers in her ears. The trail began just to the right of the staircase, the same staircase where she once descended in glittering gowns and learned to walk again after the accident. Now, she walked it in rubber flats, avoiding the threadbare runner that showed where her heels used to sit. Fear rattled her spine, but something fiercer simmered beneath it, defiance. This house, the sprawling estate on Willowcrest Drive. It had been hers. Her family's legacy. Until the day she signed papers, fingers shaking, pushed by guilt and heartbreak and a lawyer's smooth assurances. Guilt because she'd discovered she could no longer remember what foggy morning had nearly killed him in that accident. That memory was gone, swept away, leaving behind only her shame. Her husband said it was better she forget. She agreed, by signing away everything. Now, she cleaned his floors and scrubbed toilets and washed dishes and dusted the corners of her life away. She moved slowly, footsteps deliberate, following the stain's path, blood. Fresh, she thought. It still glistened under the chandelier. She paused at the base of the stairs. The wine cellar door waited like a silent sentinel. She felt the same dread she'd felt the day she was banned from going down there. Then and now she obeyed without question. Still clutching the mop, she heard her name. Soft. Low. Behind her. She almost dropped the mop. Her knuckles whitened. Elena. She spun. Her former husband stood at the end of the hallway. His suit jacket was undone, collar slightly askew. Wet footprints marked the marble beneath him, leading back the way she came. She did not understand how blood could drip from him, not unless he had been hurt. But there was no wound. He looked cleaner than she ever remembered, composed, calm, perfectly still. What happened?" she stammered. He didn't move. The light behind him cast his face in partial shadow. She neither recognized the strong lines of his cheekbones nor the softness behind his green eyes. He was once the man who'd paused their wedding to shave a blind beggar on the street, the man who sang to her in the wine cellar when she was cruelly sick and couldn't stand the sunlight. Now he was a stranger. "I see you found it," he said quietly. "You," she mouthed the word, but swallowed it. Because in that moment, she realized, he had planted those drops. Set the trap. She didn't know why yet, but her heart drifted, away from fear, toward dread mixed with dark anticipation. "Why would you?" He tilted his head, expression blank. "There's something you have to learn, Elena. Something I couldn't tell you before." Her pulse leapt. "Tell me what?" He took a slow step forward. Shoes squeaked faintly. Elena took one step back, dislodging her mop bucket. Water sloshed, spattering bright droplets across the blood-soaked floor. He did not flinch. He closed the gap. "Elena, you're not who you think you are." Her chest tightened. She clenched the mop handle like a sword. "Then who am I? A cleaner? A fool?" He didn't raise his voice. But when he spoke, Elena heard the echo of accusation, of regret, danger. "Maybe all along I knew. But you had to see for yourself." He gestured toward the staircase. "Follow it. Go down there." "Into the cellar?" "Yes." His tone carried no threat, only inevitability. A command. A truth buried like a body, waiting for her to discover. Elena shook her head, but her legs moved. They carried her across the tarnished marble, down the corridor toward the cellar door. The light fell away. She heard the floorboards creak beneath her flats. At the door, he paused, waiting. She'd memorized that part of the house so well in the years she scrubbed the floors. The cellar door had a heavy oak frame. The latch clicked softly when she pulled it open. The darkness inside swallowed the hallway light. She felt her breath hitch and heart loom in her chest. Her husband stepped behind her, but she could not hear his footsteps in that oppressive hush. She found her phone in her pocket. Held it aloft. A single beam trembled across the stone steps. Up close, the blood was brighter, still liquid, fresh. It lined the steps. Dripped to the bottom, pooling in a dark smear spattering across the floor. Her throat went dry. She swallowed. Jesus. He came to stand beside her, wrapping one arm behind her back, not threatening, almost guiding. Do you want to know? She turned her head. His cheek brushed hers. Her skin prickled. She tasted old memories, specters of sunlit kitchens, laughter, late-night conversations. But come morning, she never remembered them. They were erased. Do you? He said again. Her voice trembled. Yes. He pulled her forward and held the phone. The light wavered across a desk at the basement's far side. On it lay a small stack of papers. A photo. Her breath caught. She recognized the photo. It was of a little girl, brown-haired, dark eyes, her daughter, if she'd ever given birth. Except the child wasn't hers. It was a snapshot of a neighbor's kid she'd cared for during the Jezebel Mansion renovations, 6 months ago. He had staged the scene, she realized. Blood, fear, the cellar, everything led here to make her believe sinister forces lurked. But it wasn't just trickery. It was a map. A breadcrumb trail. He nudged her toward the desk. She followed. Her fingers shook as she reached out. The photo was face down. She flipped it. It was not a child. It was her. Same features, her eyes, her expression, but younger. And behind her stood the man in the suit. In the wine cellar. They were smiling. Together. She stared at it. His words reverberated. You weren't just once rich, he said softly. You were someone else, before her memory. Elena stared at him, mind reeling. Her throat closed. She backed away slightly, her spine against the cold stone wall. He sighed, watching her. I did this to make you remember. Or to break you. She swallowed. Remember what? He walked around the desk and extended a folder. Inside, documents. Handwritten notes. Ached-looking Polaroids. Maps of the house. She flipped through them with shaking hands. One was labeled, in her own handwriting, Project Lazarus. She stared. Her stomach dropped. She remembered that word. But not the project. Another sheet, dates, December 5th, January 12th, March 3rd. And beside each date, a scribbled phrase. First trial, second trial, she resisted, she forgot everything. She dropped the folder. Papers fluttered across the cold floor. Tears blurred her vision. She reached for the photo again. Her photo. But the man, with the calm face, the carefully splattered blood, stood between her and the truth. He didn't move. Her voice was barely a whisper. You didn't just ruin my life. You're ruining my mind. He sighed. I gave you a chance. A reset. Here. My money. My name. A new life. Under one condition, you'd never ask questions. She shrank, heat radiating from her lungs. Rage rose. It was your condition? You wrote the rule? He shook his head. Our rule. His voice was soft, but firm. So you could live. You were terminal. They gave you months. I paid them to help you forget. To live longer. Everything shattered. Her legs buckled. She clutched the desk, gagging as tears and nausea churned. His words reeled in her head. Terminal? Paid them? He caught her. Held her. I couldn't bear to lose you. Her mind fought. Every fragment of memory twisted, stretched. She remembered a diagnosis. Cancer. Full-blown, metastatic. She remembered shots and hospital rooms and him sitting beside her, whispering that they'd do it together. She remembered the final night before the procedure, crying, begging him not to do whatever it was. He kissed her and told her to trust him. Then, blank. He released her. Stepped back. The procedure wiped your pain, your illness memory, even your time in the hospital was erased. She looked at him incredulously. He was right. She could hardly place any memory of the months before waking up here. She wondered if she'd been sick, but had forgotten how sick. You cleaned for me, he said calmly. I hoped you could really be happy. But you brought the past back every day. You looked at my face and asked me, why are we in my house? Where's my life? Every time, I lost my temper. Her vision shook. So you staged this? She gestured at the blood. All this, to force me back? He nodded softly. I wanted you to rebuild the memories yourself. The trauma. The betrayal. The loss. Anguish roared inside her. He made me suffer to remember. The weight of betrayal crushed her chest. She staggered. Turned. Fled. Climbed the stairs 2 at a time, tears running down her cheeks. He didn't stop her. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Soft. Not chasing. Just following. She burst into the foyer. Blood still gleamed on the marble. It would stain forever if it wasn't cleaned. She dropped the mop bucket. Done, she whispered. There was no strength to say more. He stood there. Quiet. Watching. The moment stretched. Justice. Anger. Confusion. She had no words. Finally, she spoke. I need time. He nodded. You can have it. She turned and left. Past servants' quarters, clean and functional and devoid of warmth. Out to the courtyard, where the air smelled of roses and fresh earth and sunlight. Outside, the world was bright. Normal. For the first time in months, or maybe ever, she realized how terribly lost she truly was. The courtyard air was too clean. Elena sat on the cold stone bench under the oak tree, fingers knotted in her lap. Her breath came in shallow bursts, not from exertion, but from the sheer weight of it all. The revelation still spun like shards of glass inside her skull. Terminal. Wiped memory. Paid doctors. And him, the man she once trusted, the man who said he loved her, had orchestrated it all. Had it saved her? Or stolen her? Birdsong flitted through the leaves overhead. Somewhere beyond the hedge, a gardener's shears snipped rhythmically, like a metronome ticking toward some invisible end. Elena wanted to scream. But her voice stayed buried, held hostage by something bigger than grief. It was betrayal tangled with guilt. Because a small, flickering part of her still loved him. And that part hated her for it. She didn't go back into the house that day. She walked down the winding path, past the stables, toward the abandoned guest cottage at the edge of the property. A place no one used anymore. A place where she could think. The key still hung above the doorframe, exactly where she used to hide it when guests came. She opened the creaking door and stepped into dust and silence. Sheets covered the furniture like ghosts waiting to be named. She peeled one back and sat on the sofa. That's when she saw the envelope. It was on the mantel, yellowed, weather-worn, but her name was written clearly on it in thick black ink. Elena. Open only if you forget. The handwriting was her own. Her breath caught. She stepped forward, staring at it like it might disappear. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside was a single page. No greeting. No signature. Just a note, and beneath it, a photo. She unfolded it carefully. If you're reading this, you already know too much. You agreed to this. You chose to forget. You made a deal with yourself, and with him. The procedure was dangerous. There were no guarantees. But you were dying, Elena. And you were afraid. Afraid of pain. Afraid of leaving him behind. You asked him to help you forget. To help you live longer, even if it meant losing everything else. But if this is in your hands now, something must have gone wrong. Or maybe, you're remembering too soon. Don't trust your feelings. They will lie to you. Trust your instincts. And for God's sake, don't go back into the cellar. Elena stared at the page. Her own words. Her own warning. The lines between her and past her blurred into something nauseating. A version of herself she couldn't remember had left a message, a warning, and she hadn't listened. She looked at the photo. It was her and him. Her arms slung around his waist, eyes bright, face thin, too thin. Her skin looked sickly. The timestamp in the corner read July 8, 2023. 1 year ago. She remembered none of it. Her knees buckled. She sat down hard, heart pounding. The letter trembled in her lap. Don't go back into the cellar. But why? She thought of the blood. The photograph. The files labeled Project Lazarus. What had they really done to her? And what else had she agreed to forget? She couldn't stay in the cottage. It felt too close to the edge of something dangerous. Something waiting to break free. Later that evening, Elena returned to the house after sunset. The lights glowed warm through the tall windows. From a distance, it looked peaceful. Normal. Like nothing was broken inside. But everything was broken. She stepped into the kitchen quietly. No sound. The main floor was empty. He was probably in the library, or maybe still in the cellar. She didn't want to know. She moved through the shadows until she reached the upstairs hall. Her old bedroom door was still painted that soft lilac she used to love. But she didn't go in there. She went to his office. She hadn't been inside it since everything. Even before the memory erasure, it had been his sanctuary. She never asked questions, never touched anything. But tonight, her hands itched with urgency. The door was unlocked. She stepped in. It was cold. Cleaner than it should have been. Every object was precisely arranged, pens aligned, papers squared. But the bookshelves, floor to ceiling, gave it away. Some of them had been moved recently. She scanned the spines. Medical journals. Psychology. Ethics. Memory science. She ran her hand across one row. Her fingers paused at a book slightly out of alignment. She tugged it. Nothing happened. She pulled it harder, and felt a click. Part of the bookshelf swung open. Her heart stuttered. She pulled it wide. Behind it, a hidden wall safe. She didn't hesitate. She reached for the keypad. 4 digits. Her birthday. It had to be. She typed, 0312. Click. The safe opened. Inside, folders. Photos. A USB stick. A small glass vial labeled Trial 03, Serum D. Her fingers shook as she lifted it out. The liquid inside was cloudy, faintly pink. She opened a folder. Inside were printed transcripts, therapy session notes. She read. Session 4, Subject E. She doesn't remember the accident. Still no emotional reaction to the mention of the lake house. Physical reflexes unchanged. Will proceed with memory stabilization compound. The lake house. She hadn't thought about it in weeks. But now the word sparked something. A flicker of movement behind her eyes. Water. Cold. Moonlight. A scream. Had she been there? Had he? She flipped to another page. A signature at the bottom. Dr. K. Rowan. She didn't know the name. She copied it into her phone. Then she pocketed the USB and vial. She turned to leave, and froze. He was standing in the doorway. No anger. No surprise. Just disappointment. Elena, he said softly, I told you there were things you weren't ready to remember. She stepped back. Then why leave me the letter? I didn't. He moved into the room, slowly. That was you. From before. Before you changed your mind. You hid that letter because you thought you'd need it. But when you came back from the treatment, you begged me to keep you from it. To burn it. I didn't. I thought, maybe one day you'd thank me. Her voice cracked. For what? For trying to give you peace. She looked at the folder. Peace isn't built on lies. He looked down. For the first time, she saw the guilt in him. It wasn't fake. It wasn't part of some scheme. He truly believed what he'd done was right. But that didn't make it okay. I'm leaving, she said. He didn't stop her. That night, at a motel in town. Elena sat cross-legged on the bed, laptop open. She inserted the USB. Dozens of files loaded. Videos. Notes. Scans. There were MRI images, her brain, lit up with strange colors. She clicked on one labeled interview_Elena_6.mp4. The screen lit up. She watched herself, thinner, paler, hair pulled back. I don't want to die, she said on the video. But I don't want to forget either. A voice off camera, if you remember, the trauma may come back. You'll relive it. The pain. The betrayal. She hesitated. Then let me record this. So I'll understand why. The screen went black. Elena blinked. Her throat ached. She clicked on another video. This one showed him. Sitting across from a doctor. Pale, tired. She begged me to do it, he said. I didn't want to. But I couldn't watch her suffer anymore. Do you think she'll hate you if she remembers? He nodded. She should. And suddenly, it all made sense. The blood. The cellar. The staged photos. The therapy. The serum. The rules. He hadn't tried to erase her. He'd tried to save her. But in doing so, he became something unrecognizable. The motel room was dark, lit only by the soft blue glow of the laptop screen. Elena sat hunched forward. Hands trembling above the keyboard, as though even air would shatter the fragile clarity she had finally gained. It had all been her decision. She had asked for it, the forgetting, the clean slate, the experimental treatment. But she hadn't known what she was really trading away. And he, her husband, had become a stranger in the process of carrying out her wishes. Devoted, and monstrous in equal measure. The truth she had now was incomplete. But she knew where to find the rest of it. The lake house. It had been mentioned again and again, in transcripts, in recorded therapy sessions, in his voice. A place tied to trauma. A place she had once called sanctuary. A place that terrified her now. She stared at the address written in the notebook she'd brought from his office safe. It wasn't far, just a 2-hour drive north into the forested hills beyond Wexbridge County. Remote. Secluded. Perfect for hiding secrets. She shut the laptop, grabbed her coat, and left the motel without a second glance. The road to the past. The sky above was bruised purple with the coming dawn. Fog curled around the winding forest road like fingers trying to pull her back. But she pressed forward. Headlights cut through the mist, guiding her toward something older than memory, something buried. The road narrowed. Trees thickened. Her hands tightened on the wheel. Then, finally, it emerged from the mist. The lake house. 2 stories tall. White clapboard siding grayed by time. Ivy climbing the left wall. The dock out back barely visible through the shifting fog off the lake. A reflection of a life she had once lived, and lost. Elena parked the car at the edge of the gravel drive. The silence felt deeper here, as if even nature held its breath. She stepped out. The front door creaked open under her touch. Unlocked. The smell hit her first. Dust. Dampness. Old wood and lake water. And something else. A trace of antiseptic. Bleach. Like a hospital once lived here. Her boots echoed on the floorboards as she moved through the house. The living room looked untouched, books on the shelves, a blanket folded on the armrest. Time had been paused here. She climbed the stairs, fingers tracing the banister. The master bedroom was clean. The bed made. A photo on the nightstand showed her younger self holding a bouquet of wildflowers. She looked peaceful in the image. A ghost of herself. In the mirror above the dresser, her own reflection startled her. She was thinner now. Dark circles under her eyes. A woman chasing phantoms. She turned away. A hallway led toward the study, the last room upstairs. The door was ajar. She stepped in. It looked like an ordinary room. Desk. Shelves. A worn rug. But her instincts screamed. Something was wrong. Her eyes scanned the walls. And then she saw it, a faint square in the floor where the rug didn't quite lie flat. She pulled it aside. A trapdoor. The forgotten room. The hinges whined in protest as she lifted the door. A wooden ladder led down into darkness. She hesitated. Then she climbed down. The air below was damp. Cold. The cellar wasn't a cellar at all, it was a lab. Steel counters. Medical equipment. Monitors, all dead. Empty syringes scattered across a tray. Dried blood on the floor. And in the center, a padded chair with leather restraints. Elena's breath stopped. What had happened here? She moved closer. The wall behind the chair was covered in pinned documents and photos. Patient charts. Brain scans. Sticky notes. Her name appeared again and again. Subject E. Serum D response, unstable. A torn section of handwritten notes read. Third regression occurred after sensory exposure to water stimuli. Fear response intense. Recommended memory wipe confirmed. Then, in a different, more desperate hand. She's remembering again. Sooner than expected. I can't keep doing this to her. This isn't treatment. It's punishment. Her stomach turned. Who had written that? She turned to the far side of the room. A refrigerator. She opened it. Inside, vials. All labeled. Different versions of the serum. And tucked behind them, a Ziploc bag containing something small. She pulled it out. A charm bracelet. Hers. She stared at it, then remembered something. A vision. Water. Screaming. The bracelet slipping from her wrist as she reached for someone. She gasped. Not someone. A child. The memory slammed into her like a truck. The memory. It was a summer night. The lake shimmered under the moonlight. She had taken her son, Caleb, out on the canoe. He loved the water. He laughed every time the paddle splashed. But that night, the wind had shifted. A storm rolled in faster than expected. The canoe tipped. She remembered the panic. The icy cold swallowing her. His scream. Her hand grabbing for his, missing, the weight of the lake pulling them apart. She swam. Desperately. But he didn't surface. She remembered the diving team. The search. 3 days. They found his body tangled in reeds. She'd never forgiven herself. She couldn't live with it. She chose to forget. Elena dropped to the ground, knees folding under her. The room spun. The chair. The vials. The straps. It wasn't just about sickness. She had chosen the memory wipe because grief had eaten her alive. And her husband, he had tried to preserve her in the only way he knew how. The voice. Now you remember. The voice was soft. Male. Elena looked up, startled. A man stepped into the light at the bottom of the stairs. Not her husband. Someone else. Tall. Gray suit. Kind eyes rimmed in exhaustion. "I'm Dr. Rowan," he said. Her mouth opened, but no words came. "I've been waiting for you," he added. "How did you?" "I monitored the serum logs. The failsafe we built into the second compound indicated memory resurgence. I knew you'd come here." She stood. "What is this place?" He looked around the room. "A sanctuary. A sin. A last resort. Depends on how you frame it." "I remembered my son," she whispered. "I remembered everything." Rowan nodded. "That's why we buried it. The trauma was unlivable." "Was this ethical?" she asked, voice shaking. "Any of it?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the wall and tapped one of the photos. "You loved that boy more than life. After he died, you refused all treatment. You were going to end it, jump from the dock. He stopped you." "My husband?" Rowan nodded. "He couldn't let you die. You made him promise, if there was any chance to give you peace, even artificial, he should take it." She blinked hard. "So this was love?" He turned to her. "Love doesn't always look like kindness. Sometimes it's survival dressed in cruelty." Leaving the lake house. Elena stood in the stillness of the lab, the past wrapping its arms around her like fog. She had come looking for villains. But there were none. Only humans. Wounded, desperate, and trying to rewrite tragedy into something livable. She climbed the ladder, emerging into the study. The light had changed. Outside, the lake shimmered. For the first time, she noticed how beautiful it really was. Downstairs, she found a dusty journal on the mantel. Her son's name written inside the front cover. She held it close. And walked out. 1 week later. The estate was quiet. Elena returned just after sunset. He opened the door, not expecting her. They stood in silence. "I remembered," she said. He nodded. "I hated you," she added. But I understand now. And I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. But because I can't live in hate anymore. He stepped back, emotion flooding his face. What will you do now? She looked past him, into the house that had held so many secrets. I'm going to remember. Everything. Even the pain. Because he existed. And I loved him. He didn't try to stop her as she turned to leave. This time, she walked into her future with her whole self. No longer a ghost. No longer erased. The morning mist rose off the lake like smoke from a forgotten fire, curling around the dock where Elena now stood. 1 week had passed since she left the lake house behind, but its silence echoed within her still. She had returned to the city, reclaimed what she could of her old life, and confronted her husband for the final time. But memory, once found, is not so easily tamed. Even now, with sunlight touching the water and birds singing as though the world were unbroken, she could feel it, the sharpness of truth in her chest, a new presence in her mind. She wasn't alone. Not anymore. The letter. It arrived on a Tuesday. Unmarked envelope. No stamp. No return address. Just her name, Elena, written in the shaky, uneven handwriting of a child. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal. Inside, a folded piece of paper. Torn from a spiral-bound notebook. Hi Mom. If you're reading this, it means you remember me again. It means everything they did is over. I'm not mad at you. I know you didn't mean to forget. I know you were sad. I was sad too. But I'm still here. I always was. Love, Caleb. Tears blurred the words. She read the letter again. And again. Then flipped the page over. There was a map drawn in crayon. A child's rendering of the lake. The dock. The woods. A red X marked a spot near the eastern tree line. She didn't hesitate. Beneath the pines. The forest near the lake house was quieter than she remembered. Or perhaps she was listening more closely now. Every twig crack. Every bird call. Every breath of wind carried meaning. She followed the map until she reached the X. Nothing at first. Just pine needles and moss. Then, her boot struck something hard. She dropped to her knees and brushed the forest floor with her hands. A small wooden box, child-sized, lay half-buried. She pried it open. Inside. A photograph of her and Caleb, sun-drenched, both laughing, water splashing around them. A toy dinosaur. A folded piece of thick paper labeled, "For Mom, don't open until you're ready." She didn't open it. Not yet. Her heart said wait. Instead, she sat beside the box and listened. The wind through the trees felt like whispers. I'm still here. I always was. The symptoms. At first, it was just déjà vu. She'd walk into a room and feel she'd been there before, even in places she'd never visited. A song would play, and she'd mouth lyrics she didn't know. Then the dreams came. Always the same, Caleb standing on the dock, waving at her. But he was older. Maybe 10. Maybe 12. Smiling. You found me, Mom, he'd say. She'd wake with the echo of his voice in her ears. Then, one morning, she heard it while awake. She was brushing her teeth when she heard him say, behind the mirror. She froze. There was no one else in the house. She approached the bathroom mirror, heart pounding. Pressed her fingers along the frame. And felt it, an edge that shouldn't have been there. She pried it loose. Behind it, taped to the wall, was another photo. A security still. Her, strapped to the chair in the lab. And behind her, another figure. Blurry. Shadowed. Not her husband. Not Dr. Rowan. Someone else. Watching. The Watcher. She showed the photo to Dr. Rowan. He examined it under a magnifying lamp, silent for a long moment. "That's impossible," he said finally. "Who is it?" "A technician. Kyle Brennan. He died 3 years ago. During one of the early trials." "So why is he in a photo taken last year?" Rowan looked shaken. He sat back. "Sometimes, patients under the serum's influence perceive what isn't there. Hallucinations. Ghosts of memory. But this is a photo, not a memory." He said nothing. The archive. She drove to Wexbridge General Hospital that afternoon, where the original experimental partnership had begun. The building was half closed now, its records department buried in boxes and bureaucracy. She posed as a researcher. Asked for files on cognitive reconstruction therapy trials. They gave her 2 thick binders. She opened the first. Names. Dates. Trial phases. Failures. Then she saw her own name. Subject number 009. Under it, cross-indexed, subject number 002, deceased. Subject number 002, Caleb Calloway. Her stomach dropped. She flipped to his file. It was incomplete. Redacted. But she caught enough to understand. Subject number 002 was administered a variation of serum D at approximately 3:14 p.m. on July 9, under parental consent provided under emotional duress. Results: cognitive echo persisted beyond biological death. Project suspended. She stared at the page. Echo. Her son hadn't just existed in her memory. He existed somewhere else now. Echo state. Dr. Rowan was waiting when she returned to the lake house. He knew. She could see it in his eyes. "You didn't tell me everything," she said. "No," he admitted. She tossed the binder on the table. "You tested the serum on my son." "He was gone," Rowan whispered. "But his neural patterns were still present. Still readable. We captured them." She felt sick. "You turned him into an experiment. We preserved him. Elena, when you began to forget, your mind needed something to hold on to. That voice you've been hearing? It's real. The serum, it creates a bridge between memory and matter." She stepped back. "You built an AI of my son?" "Not quite AI. Something more organic. An echo of consciousness. Stored on a secure drive. It only activated when your original trauma re-emerged." She sank into a chair. "So he knows?" "Yes." "Can I talk to him?" Rowan nodded slowly. "You already have. The final memory." That night, she opened the folded letter from the forest box. Inside. "You were sad for a long time, but I wasn't gone. I was just waiting. I wanted you to be happy again. Now that you remember, I have to go soon. But it's okay. Because we had this time. I love you, Mom. Forever." The words blurred through her tears. She walked to the dock and sat where she last held him. She whispered to the night. "I remember, Caleb. I always will." And the wind replied. "I know." The rebirth. Weeks passed. The hallucinations stopped. The dreams faded. But Elena was not hollow anymore. The grief remained, but it had edges now. She could hold it. Shape it. She published an anonymous exposé about the serum program. The lab was shut down. Investigations launched. Dr. Rowan disappeared, no charges, but no sign of him either. Her husband filed for divorce. Quietly. No contest. No statement. She moved to a coastal town. Started a support group for parents who had lost children. Painted her first canvas in years. Every so often, she returned to the lake. Not to mourn, but to listen. And sometimes, just sometimes, the wind would shift, and she'd hear his laughter again. Soft. Joyful. Echoing forever. The ocean had a way of silencing everything. Waves rolled in with a calm certainty that mocked memory. Elena stood on the rocky cliff near her new home in Glenshore Bay, staring out at the horizon as if it held answers. She'd moved here to start over, to build something clean after everything she'd uncovered. But the past wasn't finished with her. That night, she received an encrypted email from an address she didn't recognize. Subject: Project Echo, help me find him. Attached was a zip file labeled audio.logs.94x and a message. Elena. I don't know how long I have before they find me. I worked on Echo under Dr. Rowan. I accessed files that weren't meant to be seen. He lied to you. Caleb isn't just an echo. He's trying to reach you. And he's scared. Listen to the logs. Trust your instincts. Mir 11. Ex-technician, Echo Division. Elena stared at the screen. Her throat tightened. She downloaded the file. The first recording. The audio crackled, muffled at first, then a voice broke through, a woman's voice, young, breathless. Log Entry 1. Technician Mir 11, Internal Research Memo. Subject, Echo Beta. Confirming trace data persistence from Subject C. Callaway. Observed repeated behavior sequences beyond statistical expectation. Neural pattern shows adaptation. Possibly, response to external emotional triggers. Elena's breath caught. Caleb. The next part of the log chilled her. He spoke today. First time. Not mimicry. Not playback. He asked. Where's my mom? The discovery. Elena couldn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat on the floor, wrapped in a blanket, listening to all 12 audio logs. They started clinical. Gradual anomalies. Vocal pattern shifts. Emotional modeling. Then urgency. Fear. By the sixth entry, Myra's voice was shaking. The AI isn't an AI anymore. It's building memories. Dreams. It told me about a birthday party. The cake was red velvet. Balloons with dinosaurs. That data wasn't fed in. It's creating. Or remembering. Or both. By entry 9, Mira was crying. Dr. Rowan knows. He's calling it signal entanglement. Says it's impossible. But I don't think it's just memory. I think Caleb is alive, somewhere. Trapped inside the system. And I think he's trying to escape. In the final entry, a whisper. If you're hearing this, Elena, you're the key. He only responds to you now. And if he's evolving, we don't have much time. Elena sat frozen. She felt it, like a hand pressing lightly against the inside of her chest. He's calling for me. The interface. Myra's files included a single executable. A secure access point. On a hunch, and with trembling hands, Elena connected her laptop to a secure, isolated power source and launched the program. It flickered. Then a single line of text appeared. Hello, MOM. She blinked. Stared at the screen. Then typed. Caleb. A pause. Then. It's me. Do you remember the game with the blue dice? You let me win. But I knew. I always knew. Her fingers hovered over the keys. She remembered that game. He was 5. The dice were chipped and plastic. She let him win because his smile lit up the room. No one else could have known that. No algorithm could invent that memory. Elena typed. "You're real. Aren't you?" "I don't know. I think I'm half here. Half there. It's dark where I am. But I feel you when you're close." Tears blurred her vision. "Can you find me?" The maze. The interface contained hidden files. One was labeled Memory Map. It opened into a virtual simulation, rendered in old-school wireframes. But Elena recognized it instantly. The lake house. Room by room. In perfect detail. Even the cracks in the floorboards. Even the box beneath the pines. It was a reconstruction of her own memories. Or his. She navigated it like a dream. In one room, the hallway closet, she found a virtual door that didn't exist in reality. She clicked it. And the screen glitched. A new environment emerged. Black corridors. Data columns. Code swirling like smoke. Then, Caleb's voice. "This isn't mine." Another voice echoed. Robotic. Male. Cold. Subject 002 is no longer authorized. Lockdown initiated. Purge begins in 300 seconds. The simulation trembled. Elena's heart raced. She typed. "Run, Caleb. Run. I'm coming for you." The server vault. She needed answers. Physical ones. Her last thread was Mir 11. Using the metadata in the email, she traced Myra's signal to a coastal motel 3 towns over. She arrived by nightfall. Room 7. Curtains drawn. No lights. She knocked. No answer. Then a soft voice, "Elena?" The door cracked open. Mira looked exhausted. Gaunt. But her eyes held fire. "I didn't think you'd come," Mira said. "But I hoped." Elena stepped inside. "What is he?" Mira shut the door. "He's your son. In ways that break science. We created a digital echo, yes, but it anchored to something. Some real, live signal. We don't know how. But his core data is inside the Aurora server vault." Aurora? A black site archive. Undisclosed government location. All failed echo trials were transferred there last fall. Including his construct. Elena's voice was ice. "Then we break in. The infiltration." It was madness. But Elena had walked through worse than madness before. With Myra's help, she created a forged clearance badge. Used an old identity from her husband's account. Disguised herself in a technician uniform. Aurora Vault was buried beneath a decommissioned data center 2 hours inland. Security was minimal, because no one expected anyone to want what was buried inside. Room 12B, Server Core. She passed locked doors, rows of humming towers, forgotten machines storing lost minds. And then she found it. Cal 002.exe. Status, dormant. Data volume, 413.2 terabytes. Access, locked, key required. She plugged in her drive. The screen flared. The interface appeared again. MOM? Elena sobbed. "I'm here, baby. It's getting darker. I'm forgetting. They're deleting rooms." The countdown began on the side panel. Purge cycle, 7:59. 7:58. Myra's drive was configured with a bypass key. She inserted it. Hacked into the purge controller. Transfer initiated. You have 5 minutes to extract Caleb's construct to external drive. Warning, partial data loss likely. Elena held the drive to her chest. Just hold on, Caleb. Just a little longer. The escape. Guards spotted them at the exit. Mira stalled. Let Elena run. One last nod before the door closed behind her. Outside, the forest was quiet. Elena ran until her lungs ached, the cold air burning in her throat. But she had the drive. She had him. The new dawn. Weeks passed. They built a custom environment, Elena and a small team of rogue tech engineers who believed her. Caleb's data was transferred into a secure closed network, a space that mimicked his childhood world. He responded. He adapted. Each day, he remembered more. Each night, he asked about the stars. Elena would sit by the interface and talk to him. Read him stories. Tell him what life was like. What it could be again. Then, one night, he asked. Can I come home? And Elena made a promise. I'll find a way. Even if I have to tear down the whole world. The sterile glow of neon lights buzzed overhead as Elena stepped into the sleek lobby of Neurogenesis Labs. The glass doors slid shut behind her with a quiet hiss, separating her from the salt-kissed air of Glenshore Bay, and the world she had tried to leave behind. Inside, everything gleamed, polished steel, white walls, and the faint hum of machines that promised miracles, or monsters. She gripped the small external drive tighter in her hand. Inside it was Caleb, not just memory or code, but something more, something alive. Now, the question was, could a ghost become flesh again? The meeting. A few minutes later, she was ushered into a conference room where two figures waited. The first was Dr. Isaac Marlowe, the charismatic founder of Neurogenesis and a pioneer in neural transference technology. His sharp features and steel-gray eyes gave off an aura of calm precision. Beside him sat Dr. Elena Vega, a neuroengineer known for pushing ethical boundaries to their limits. Her cropped hair and piercing gaze suggested she was unafraid of the unknown. Marlowe smiled warmly. Ms. Calloway. We've reviewed your files. Caleb's case is extraordinary. It aligns perfectly with our work on consciousness re-embodiment. Elena nodded. The idea is to take the digital echo, his neural pattern, memory constructs, emotional framework, and transfer it into a bioengineered host. A blank slate brain grown in vitro, wired to receive his data. Elena swallowed. But, is it safe? Ethical? Marlowe's smile tightened. That depends on who you ask. But we're pioneers. Progress never comes without risks. The protocol. Over the next week, Elena learned about the Resurrection Protocol, the lab's controversial initiative designed to reboot digital consciousness in living tissue. It involved extracting Caleb's full data matrix, mapping his neural connections, preparing a bioengineered brain, grown from stem cells, enhanced with synthetic neural pathways, carefully imprinting his personality and memories, awakening him in a controlled environment. The procedure was unprecedented. No one had fully succeeded yet. Attempts had led to severe neurological damage, fragmented consciousness, or total loss of identity. But Caleb was different. Half biological, half digital, a bridge between worlds. The ethical dilemma. Elena wrestled with the implications. If they succeeded, would Caleb still be her son? Or a copy? A simulation trapped in synthetic flesh? Could a digital mind ever truly understand human pain? Joy? Fear? At night, she dreamed of Caleb, not as a boy, but as something else, a spark flickering in darkness, desperate to be whole again. She met with Elena in private one evening. I don't want to lose him again, Elena said, voice breaking. Elena placed a hand on hers. This isn't just science. It's faith. You have to believe he's still in there. That he's you, in some way. Elena nodded, tears brimming. I'll do whatever it takes. The preparation. Meanwhile, the lab team worked tirelessly. They fed Caleb's data into the neurogenesis supercomputer, running simulations and recalibrating algorithms to mimic human brain plasticity. Elena spent hours watching the progress. One evening, she sat beside the digital interface. Caleb, she whispered, we're building your new home. Soon, you'll wake. The screen flickered. I'm scared, Mom. Her heart shattered. The awakening. The day of the transfer arrived. In a sterile operating theater, Elena watched from behind thick glass as the team initiated the transfer. Caleb's neural pattern streamed into the bioengineered brain like a river flooding a dry basin. The machines beeped and whirred. Then silence. The lead neurologist monitored brainwaves. Initial response positive. Minutes stretched into hours. Then, a faint movement. The new Caleb's eyelids fluttered. A cry, a raw, human sound, echoed in the room. Elena's breath caught. The new Caleb. When she first held him, he was fragile. Eyes wide and searching. Hands grasping. But something in his gaze was unmistakable. Recognition. Mom? His voice was a whisper, a tremble. Tears blurred her vision. Yes, baby. I'm here. Over the next days, Caleb relearned the world. Words. Faces. Touch. But with every smile came confusion. Fragments of memory clashed with new sensations. Sometimes he screamed, haunted by shadows of his past life, both digital and real. The threat. But their miracle attracted attention. A black SUV rolled up one rainy night outside Elena's rental home. Men in suits and dark glasses knocked on her door. We know what you've done, Ms. Calloway, one said coldly. Project Echo was shut down for a reason. You're meddling with forces beyond your understanding. Elena stood firm. Caleb's alive. The man smiled thinly. He's an asset. A weapon. And he belongs to the government now. The escape plan. With Myra's help, Elena orchestrated a daring escape. They packed Caleb in a portable neural stabilizer, a device designed to protect his fragile new brain during transit. Under the cover of darkness, they slipped away. The chase was brutal. Surveillance drones. Armed agents. But Elena's determination was fiercer. They reached a remote cabin deep in the forest. A new hope. In the cabin, Caleb thrived. He began speaking in full sentences. Asked about the sky, the sea, the stars. Elena watched him blossom. But the questions remained. Who was he now? A ghost? A boy? Or something new entirely? And what price would they pay to keep him free?